We have stuff to talk about today. This isn't my normal Halo video that I would be typically doing. This is a video that I've had planned actually for about a week now, and I have been trying to find a way to, I guess, kind of talk about my points here. There is some extra stuff that's going to be thrown in here. I got a piece from a friend of mine, and we'll be talking about that later. But there's something I want to talk about. As a Halo creator, as a gaming content creator, because I don't just focus on Halo. I know Halo is the main thing that I cover here. If you guys don't know, or you were new here, I'm doing the Halo 100% challenge, which to most would be like, oh, you're just completing all the games and getting all the achievements. No, buddy, it's deeper than that. I'm going through and completing every game, getting every single achievement in MCC and Infinite. I know 5 is left out. I'm deeply sorry about that. There's just not a PC port to 5. If there was, I would gladly do the same thing. But if you all don't know, over in Halo Infinite and in Halo MCC, there is a max rank grind as well. In Halo MCC, it is called the Tor 11 Club. Over on Halo Infinite, it is just referred to as the Hero Grind. I've been doing both of those as well. So we are legit 100%ing every single Halo title. But that's not the point of today's video. I like to cover a bunch of different games. I like covering indie games. I like covering bigger titles. If you guys don't remember, not too long ago, I covered a game called Pigface. It was a game that just popped up on my Twitter timeline from an indie developer, and it actually struck my nerve of like, oh, I want to try this. This looks like something I would love. If you guys don't know, I'm a huge fan of PS2 era games, but specifically the thing about this game that I loved so deeply was it reminded me a lot of Manhunt. If you guys don't know what Manhunt is, go do some research. It's a really cool game that Rockstar made back for the PS2, and it, to me, is kind of a timeless classic. It delved into a lot of conversations that I think in gaming are really not talked about anymore. And it was very interesting. It was a cool story. It had really cool mechanics. It was brutal as all shit. Probably more brutal than any game that they've released ever since. But the game kind of gave me the same vibe as that, especially with its art style. So I like to talk about games like that. And I have some other games that I've been wanting to cover as well and do playthroughs on and kind of just talking my piece on them. Like I do with Halo a lot. I talk about a lot of things involving Halo, about the struggles within the community, what to expect next, what do the fans want in the next Halo title. And sometimes those conversations do not turn into conversations about positivity and things that we could use to actually enhance the series. It's usually turned into 343 bad. We don't like 343. I don't know, man. Games evolve. It's fine. But today, the main topic of conversation that I've wanted to have for a good long bit here is just something that I've never really had the ability to dive into, but it seems more and more that it's becoming more and more prevalent, and so therefore I feel like I need to talk about it. Um, so our topic today here over on the Core Boy channel, because I don't do these sit down and talk videos very often. It's usually covered by gameplay. um, it's it's a big one, and it's one that bothers me quite a bit as a person who has been playing video games for over 20 years. If you guys don't know, I'm getting ready to turn 23. I do in 3 days now. I started playing video games when I was around 2 years old. I had got a PlayStation 2 and a GameCube for a Christmas present one year, and I fell in love playing games like Metroid, and then I really fell in love with games like Need for Speed and stuff. And as time went on, I got introduced to things like shooters, and I've talked about it here before, but my biggest introductions to the genre of shooters was Gears of War 1 and Halo 2. And those games took over my life. I'm still a massive fan of both. I mean, if you all can't tell, I'm a huge Halo fan. I have been for almost 20 years, and Gears of War is the same way. I'm a huge fan of that series as well. I've done playthroughs of the games on my channel. I've done Gears of War content. I've done videos talking about E-Day and how excited I am for that title to come out. And there's kind of a theme with a lot of games here in recent years, and I think we've seen it more and more recently, and it's been something that is kind of hard to talk about and kind of hard to harp on because there's so many angles that you can go to look at this. And for those who are here for Halo content and stuff like that, this is kind of going to dive a little bit into there, but it's going to dive into a lot of studios too. The biggest thing that we're talking about today is the state of the gaming industry. And it seems to be not great here as of recently, which is super weird. Because if you look at gaming and you've looked at it over the last 5 or 6 years, gaming is now more profitable than it ever has been. Not only in just casual gaming, but also things like esports. It's more profitable than ever. I would say, honestly, with the release of games like Fortnite and during the pandemic, gaming hit a point that it had never hit before. I mean, I still remember being in like elementary and middle school and being bullied because I like video games because it wasn't seen as like a normal thing that people were really into. I had like one friend who I still play with every day that was super into gaming, and that's all we did. It was the only thing that we cared about. And me and him still have conversations about, damn, I really wish there was like a certain way to go back in time and experience things and see where it's going. And I will say this is games have become more profitable. There's been more businesses getting into them, more businesses going being like, oh, we got to get into this. This is a profitable market for us. And that has led to some good and bad things. I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, the biggest thing that's concerned me with gaming as a whole is the amount of layoffs that we've seen. We've seen the big Bungie layoffs here in the last couple of years. They just did another big round of them not too long ago, and I ended up talking about that in a video. We know that 343, the developers of Halo, a series that I deeply love, during Infinite's development was really struggled with Microsoft forcing them to only hire contractors and working on a brand new engine. So I think a lot of people tend to undermine things like that. So, for example, I'm going to use Infinite as an example because that's a game that I do absolutely love, but I understand a lot of critiques that come from it, but I feel like they are also kind of misguided. With Halo Infinite during its development, we kind of know how that all went. It was, hey, you all have this amount of time to put out a game. You're building it on a new engine, and you're only using contractors because half the team got fucking laid off. Plus, management was pretty poor at that time. But we're going to talk about it from a development side, not a management side. There was this issue with Halo Infinite right from the get-go. When they showed it off at I think it was Gamescom, or one of the games conferences that happens every year, I forget exactly which one, we got an inside look at Infinite. And right from the get-go, there was a lot of, oh god, this game doesn't look that great. I will say this, looking back at that trailer, the skybox and everything looks great. The actual game itself had potential to be one of the best looking Halo titles we've ever got. I would say a contender with even Halo 3, which is, to me, personally, when it comes to art direction, a Halo game that has withstood the test of time like no other. That's just a personal opinion. I think a lot of people do kind of agree with that, and that's part of the reason why I've done videos talking about a Halo 3 anniversary and how I don't think we necessarily need it yet. I think that game actually still holds up. You go back and play Halo 3 if you have the ability to do so. I know MCC's had its issues, and I'm going to be doing a full video on that. But that game has just withstood the test of time, and I think Infinite had the ability to be that. Then we got the beta. It was clearly a much more refined game. It was great. The beta was very well received. People were like, holy shit, this feels like classic Halo with a more modern take. We didn't have the loadout system. We went back to the typical, hey, you spawn in with the same weapons, you all fight for power. And that's one thing I've always loved about Halo, is it's a game that always has defined itself by, hey, you're spawning in equal spawns all around. The biggest thing that you were doing in Halo is fighting for map power, for map advantage. Whether it's fighting for power weapons, fighting for different angles to fight from, and playing on top of each other. And that's one thing that Halo's always really harped on. I do feel like to a degree in Halo 4 that was lost with the uneven loadouts, but I still love Halo 4. That game had some really cool gameplay mechanics that I will one day talk about. And some things that I will agree and disagree with when it comes to takes on that game. But Infinite set a base of like 343 can give you the classic Halo experience and still do their own take on it. People can complain about movement in Halo all that they want. That doesn't really bother me, but we're going to go back to the gaming development thing of this game, when the beta came out, was really hyped, and then the full game came out, and I think most people realized, wait, this is just the beta. It's not a full release, really. It had very limited modes, very limited maps, very limited content. And then we started learning some more about the development side of things with, you know, it being mostly based around contractors. So people were coming in working on this new engine, finally learning it, and then being shipped off, and someone else coming in who maybe didn't know that engine. And we're trying to pick up the pieces, and it just kind of seemed like it was a hellish time. And that seems to be an issue with a lot of games. For example, a series like Call of Duty, which is one of the biggest FPSs on the market, if not is the biggest FPS on the market. That game breaks sales records every single year. And I may not even be a COD fan. I may critique Activision at absolute shit. I'm not going to exactly critique the developers because they don't really... There are certain things that they just aren't in control of, for example. But that game breaks records every single year, and they always have done that. And it's been that way for years. Call of Duty has never really had a true competitor to compete against it. And while I may not like COD, I will say this about their community. They are one of the most dedicated fan bases to have ever existed. And it's kind of impressive, the fact that they will take every fucking thing they get. It doesn't matter if they put out slop or not. They will take it and they are vocal about the issues with games, and I really do respect that. Um, some of them not so much respectful of because they just attack developers, even though it may not be a developer's decision. Um, but I think a lot of people remember, if you grew up in the time period that I did, there was iconic developers, people that were on games dev teams for years, and we knew them. For example, there's two that will come into my mind, and I'm going to go back to Call of Duty for a second here, which was David Vonderhaar and Mark Rubin. Everybody knew those faces. You knew every year who was going to come out and talk. You knew it was either going to be Mark or Vondi. And I feel like in recent years, because of all these layoffs, people switching teams so much, and it seems like it's just become a revolving door, that there's really not that community connection to these developers anymore, and it's caused a big issue in games. There's not really a face to put behind these titles, and with the revolving door, also, it just leads to development issues. We've seen it time and time again that these games aren't... It's like, you'll have one game come out one year, and it's like, oh my god, that's so perfect, they did everything right, and then the next year, because it's a revolving door of fucking developers, a lot of those steps forward may be taken right back to stage one. Instead of building off of what each game does, it seems like it's just a revolving door of ideas, which causes a lot of issues in games. And it really sucks as a person who plays these games, but also I have friends who are either graduated from university and college with game degrees, or friends that are in the fucking field of going through and getting their degree to be game designers, and then every day you have to hear, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the world that I love so much, because it just seems to be falling a bit more and more. I have a friend who graduated with his degree not too long ago, and he still can't find a job at a studio anywhere because they are so heavily put on, nah, we don't want people, or you aren't cut out for this. They're not giving people chances. And I mean, I even have that own issue in my job line, which is working in IT. I did for 2 years. I went and got a certificate to be able to do IT full time, and now I'm like kind of stuck, and it's really unfortunate. It seems like a lot of areas in here are just kind of really getting to a point of where it's like, okay, no one can even come onto these teams. People who may even have grown up playing those games and know exactly what those people want to see, and that really does concern me, because there's the times where, yeah, a lot of them really do care about the games that they are putting up, but they may not be connected with the community as such, and then there's the issue on the community end. If they aren't getting what they want, they will just go out of their way to connect, like, just damage these developers and go through and mentally torment them, whether it's harassing them online, sending them death threats and stuff of that nature, or putting out hashtags that's fire at this developer or at this studio. I'm talking about people who want to throw around the whole Fire 343 thing. That's really stupid and just kind of arrogant of you. I just got to be honest. There's difference between criticism. I have to state this here because it just needs to be stated. There is a difference between criticisms and being an asshole. There's just a blatant difference. I can talk about Halo and be like, I love this series. This is my favorite series probably ever, other than one that I have a launch box for back there, which is Fallout. But then I can be like, I do wish they would change this. I wish they would go this route with this. And that's just general criticisms. But if I go and tweet at John Unishek and I'm like, hey, I hope you get fired from your job. Fuck you. And then you get blocked and get mad about it, well, okay, you're just a fucking idiot. You did a definition that people like to throw around a lot called you fucked around and found out. But then when somebody else goes and fucks around and finds out and they face the repercussions of it, they're like, oh, you're just fucking weak. You can't take my criticism. No, you're just being an asshole. You're just an idiot. That's about as far as it goes. So, with that being said, that causes a discontent between the people that are making these games and the communities that play them. And then they collide, and it's not good. It makes developers not want to reach out to community and take their inputs on things and be like, oh, hey, we should fix this. The community clearly doesn't want this because now they log into shit and it's just, yeah, this is bad. This is terrible. I hope you all fucking lose your jobs because of this. Which then leads back to the revolving door conversation of people losing jobs and developers coming in and out in a fucking circle to where no ideas are the same. There's not consistency. That's the biggest thing, is there's just no consistency within this whole thing. It just creates this discombobulation of ideas, and it doesn't really ever pan out the way that people want it to. And listen, there's plenty of other issues in the gaming area with companies being too greedy, live service being a fucking issue, and I'm just going to go ahead and state this and go right off the bat. Content for games is good. I love a game that keeps itself alive. It's a wonderful thing. It's something that I always look forward to. Even with Halo, I look forward to every operation that comes out because it just gives me more content to play. It gives me more things to go for in the operations. But there's issues as well, and we have noticed it time and time again with Halo, Call of Duty, Fortnite, any game that falls into that live service bracket. There's a big thing that always happens: battle passes and stores. That's a big thing. Battle passes will typically get, a bit of content that's pretty cool, pretty good. And then you'll notice all the really cool content is locked behind paid. You have to buy it. And rather that's $10, $20, $30, $40, however much it may be, it causes an issue of like, well, shit, where's the actual good content at? And then that also leads into the conversation of you're getting less content in the game. And one of my biggest gripes with Halo Infinite has always been, I wish there was a challenge system. I wish there was things I could actually just obtain in game to actually go for this, not locked behind a battle pass. Because like battle passes are fine, they're fun to grind out here and there. But one thing I miss is having like actually in-depth challenges that you can go and do to unlock certain things. Like for example with MCC, they have these like little title cards that you can get by doing certain things in the game, like winning this number of matches in this mode, completing this campaign on this difficulty, or completing these par scores, par times, etc. And the more you complete, the more you get these like higher tier titles. And when you equip them, of course people know, oh damn, this fucker has went through and grinded out every bit of content the game has to offer. And I feel like we're missing that a lot, or now it's not as heavily focused on because people are like, oh well, they'll just buy it. And that's where things like publishers and people who buy into these companies kind of come into play in a negative effect. It is no longer about, well, how good is our game from release? I will say it's different for indie companies, and this is mostly me focusing on like big AAA games, is it no longer becomes, okay, well, what's the content that we want? Because, okay, how much money can we milk out of it? And we've noticed that over years. Whether it's Microsoft doing it to Gears and Halo, Activision doing it to Call of Duty, Epic doing it to Fortnite, whichever one it may be, that seems to kind of always be the consecutive thing, is how much money can we make? And that leads to also a plethora of issues of people not wanting to play games because they're like, I have nothing to go for. There's no reason for me to play this. Or people being like, yet again, because of a thing a developer may not be able to decide ahead of another company decides it, and they have to be forced to do it in order to maintain their business, there's clashing of people, of the fan base versus the people who make these games. And yet again, that creates another tear. These are just things that generally worry me a lot with the future of gaming. And at this point right here, I'm actually going to throw up something from a friend of mine. He threw a little Halo machinima. His name is Sergeant Blair. He's one of my really good friends, and he's actually going through university right now to get his degree in game design, and the dude is an absolutely amazing character. All of his stuff will be linked below, so you should go check all of that out. He's one of my favorite Halo creators, but also he likes to talk about games in general. And I reached out to him to do this little segment just to kind of give some people more insights on things that are going on in the gaming world as he is going through and going into this world. So yeah, enjoy this.
Honestly, I have no clue how Callboy gets onto my segment. So, hello. I'm Sergeant Blair. I make stupid videos, and I also make video games. I am currently going into my 3rd year of university, and my 3rd year of my game design course. And, yeah, I'm kind of worried about going into industry. For anyone who's already pretty much in the know when it comes to things like the games industry, you might have figured out by now that there's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of layoffs recently. I mean, I think, 5,000 employees from Activision or Microsoft? Please don't quote me on that. But, it's not been good for the games industry within the last couple of years. On top of not only layoffs, the industry's pretty toxic. I mean, if it isn't the bosses you'll be working under, it's the players you're trying to make a good game for. Nowadays, developer abuse is just up by so much. I can't even believe sometimes the shit I have seen on when it comes to Twitter or Instagram or even YouTube nowadays. I mean, really, just, you can critique a game, but just don't destroy the developer who's doing it. You're killing the passion out of these devs. Nah, I'm not gonna try and lecture anyone. Realistically, we've all had games that have made us upset. I can definitely attest to that. I really used to be a big fan of the Destiny series, and the way I've acted towards some of the devs on that front has not been what I would call appropriate on any level. It happens to us all. However, sometimes you need to learn how to move on and kind of just respect the dev's work despite the fact that you don't like it. Again, critique, but just don't destroy. Anyways, moving back to myself rather than just the industry as a whole. The things that make me scared is the fact that even though I think the UK is better than the US at the moment for the hiring, it's still pretty bad. It's still pretty scarce. I know quite a few people who have graduated and have still yet to find a job, never mind an interview. And while I do hope things get better, it doesn't exactly look like it.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed it. But also, thank you, Blair, for doing that. I greatly do appreciate it. Blair is one of my favorite people. If you like Halo content, if you like machinimas, and if you like going back to the golden era, I did a machinima with him not too long ago. I did a whole video where it was featured in there. We did one talking about the GAs of weapons in comp. It was really funny. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, go watch it. Blair is an absolute goat at it. There's a bunch of other creators he does stuff with, and he's just awesome. But overall, really what I wanted to get from this video is I am genuinely worried about the future of this hobby, this what I would consider at this point is a lifestyle. I feel like gaming has kind of overcome what is just considered as a hobby. It's you're either a gamer or you're really not, and there's just certain things that go on in your life that really does kind of differentiate the two. It's kind of a lifestyle at this point. It's something that I fucking love to death. I've been doing this for over 20 years now, and it's never once been like, oh yeah, I hate this. No, if I don't like a game, I'll just go find something else to play, and that's always been my rule. I'm not gonna let just like because my favorite game isn't my favorite thing anymore, I'm just not gonna let it kill my love for gaming. It's just not gonna happen. But overall, I do want to hear people's thoughts. Like, how do you all feel about the future of gaming? Because this is something that I'm also just like very passionate about, and I want to hear more on, because I'm genuinely curious about it. But other than that, though, guys, tomorrow you're gonna get a new Combat Evolved video for the playthrough, and yeah. That's it. Later, dudes.